Welcome back, everyone, to the UKEL. I'm Dara Darkselmeko, and joining me is Charlie the Sarge, and we're taking you through the final two games of the day. The first one being nerdRage versus Viperio. Now, Charlie, we've had very slow-paced games, the first two today. Are we hoping for not quite a stomp, but a bit more of a fast-paced game?
It's certainly on the cards to be a quicker end to the night than the opening was, because we have Viperio and nerdRage, and then the fourth game is Lucendi versus Mythos. And we've been talking, and in each of these matchups, there is one team that smashed their opposition last week, and there is one team that got smashed. So if we are following on just from last week's expectations going forward, these are going to be two very bloody, very quick games. But let's be honest, neither of us are really hoping for that. We're hoping for something that is a bit more even, a bit more of an actual match, because some of these teams do need to bounce back this week and show that they are not just here to be walked all over.
Yeah, they definitely do. Not the greatest showing for Viperio or Lucendi last week. Viperio having a total of 2 kills and Lucendi having a total of 5 in their game. It wasn't quite as much of a stomp in that Lucendi game because it was 15-5, but I'm hoping, at least for Viperio's sake, that they do a lot better versus nerdRage this week. But I think it's safe to say that there isn't the weight of expectation on Viperio given the performance they had last week.
No, that's definitely fair to say. We got a lot of fast games in our first week of the UKL, and a lot of the teams did. They didn't particularly come out shining in our highlight reels, but you know, it is the first week. We always say that there's plenty of room for teams to bounce back and make changes in a fairly tight schedule. But there is that room to swap things around. There is that room to practice and adapt. So I'm not putting the nail in these teams' coffins just yet, and I'm definitely not making too hard of judgments about where people are going to end up in the tables. But this is the second week, after all. If we see the same sort of performance from Viperio and Lucendi as within the first week, if they do come out and they do fall behind, it is going to start casting doubt over where they're going to end up in weeks to come.
Yeah, it's the point of the league where you have to start pulling away from the central bit of the pack, a little bit of almost a thick part of the league standings. Try and show your team that you are a carry player if you're playing AD carry, mid, or even top lane. Show that you have this standout performance that can lead your team to victory. And it's kind of all on nerdRage and Mythos to really perform in this game, given how well they did last week. But what would you really be expecting of these teams going into this third game? Because we've seen a lot of different things today. We saw the Wukong support with Fasting Senna. We saw the Volibear top lane with his rework. Is there anything that you'd like to see a lot of priority on the different AD carries too?
Honestly, I'm hoping that in terms of Mythos and nerdRage, we just want to see more of the same that we brought out last week. They look super strong across pretty much every single role. They had pressure, and they just really knew how to close out games. I think that's one of the things we were talking about watching the first two games of the evenings. They seemed that the teams were struggling to close out. Even London United in the first game, where they had that man advantage for majority, it still took them 40 minutes to actually finish off the game. We've just seen Vector have to get two of the biggest buffs, the Baron and the Elder, to actually be able to close out the game and finish it in the end. So being able to get a lead and being able to push the lead into something meaningful where you can actually finish the game is the ultimate objective for these teams. And I'm just hoping that we can see the teams actually manage to do that and manage to make something of these leads.
Yeah, they're two entirely different things. Having an advantage and pushing that advantage well, completely different things. And we do see some of the lower level teams, the ones that really aren't. I don't want to. It sounds a bit flamey if I say it, but they aren't really up to the challenge of taking on the middle of the pack teams or even the top teams as well. They can take the advantage, but they can't run with it, and that's one of their main problems.
Yeah, but the thing is, this is still only the second week, remember. We don't want to be getting too far ahead of ourselves and putting people too far down already, calling, oh, you know, here we've got our front runners. They're clearly going to be contending in the finals. There's still a lot of room for these teams to actually show off their talents, and a lot of room for the players to come together and gel in this synergistic composition. And That's really what I'm hoping to see from Viperio and Lucendi this week. I'm hoping to see a few of the cracks that appeared last week ironed out. I'm hoping that even if they do lose, it will be less of a stomp, it will be a lot closer, and it will be just a bit of a more competitive game, showing off some of the talents that the teams do possess. Like, we know quite a
Mhm.
few of the players from these rosters. They are all very talented. They are all capable of putting standing out performances together, but they just need to actually be able to get in a position where they can show that, which I don't feel they got the chance to in the first week.
No, they definitely didn't, especially on the Viperio front, since it was so much of a one-sided game. None of the carries, none of the standout players like Kaz could step up, could have that carry performance, show how good of a player that they actually are. And I would like to see Viperio step up today. Even though I did vote for nerdRage in my predictions, I would still like to see Viperio step up, bring the fight to nerdRage, and even if they lose, actually put up a standout performance, actually show that they do have what it takes. Maybe not against nerdRage, since they're pegged as one of our better teams, let's say, but can show that they could be in that top 4, maybe top 5 spot anyway.
I would happily be wrong with my predictions and see a more competitive game, because I believe I also said nerdRage were going to take this first game based mainly on last week's showing. It was hard to bet against them when they were so dominant, but it will require certain members from Viperio to actually step up, because they do have the champion pools to do this. We noted when we're looking through their OP.GGs, doing a bit of scouting, they do have a couple of picks that they could really use quite well. Camille is a signature pick of Zuki up in the top lane. Such a fantastic split push champion, and can be paired with an aggressive jungler to really put pressure into your opponent's jungle and contest early river, like Scuttle Crabs and Herald, and any form of neutral objective, giving you that initial leg up. Bard one trick down in the bot lane with Penta. Again, another unusual champion that can open different options for your team with the movement around the map, with appearing at unexpected angles behind people, with the stasis able to catch multiple members out. It is fantastic for making picks. And I think if we see Viperio play to a few of the players' individual strengths, they might have a bit more success, and that might be the key to unlocking this team's potential.
Well, we are now into Champions Select for our third game of the day. It is nerdRage versus Viperio. The first ban will be the Varus, a very common ban now on this patch, followed up by the Graves.
And if we're going by what is expected, we're going to see a Syndra, we're going to see the Yuumi coming out there, we might even see an Ezreal if teams want to try and push that further down the pool. So there's a lot of options that the teams can get rid of. I'm wondering if we're going to see any target bans, like we say, the Bard, the Camille. These could all be options that we see nerdRage want to try and take away, try and get a few of those comfort picks for Viperio off the table. Instead, it looks like we're going to go for the Talia for now.
Waiting for the Phelios to be banned from one of these sides, and there's the Phelios coming out from Viperio. The Talia is a little bit of a weird one. I think that might be just a target ban towards one of the members of the side of Viperio there. One more ban left to go. What do you target?
I mean, personally, I'm hoping it's the Ezreal. I'm really hoping it is the Ezreal. I know Yumi's gone, so you've got that fantastic pairing taken off the table already, a bit disrupted, but he is a very good champion. No, it's gonna be Bard, clearly showing some respect over to Penta, like we suggested. Does leave a Camille open, but Set is going to be that initial first pick. A lot of flexibility, because he can be played top, he can be played jungle, he can even be played support at the minute. We've seen in a few different pairings with Kalista coming back into the meta. That could be an option, providing extremely strong level 6 all in. So I like that Viperio keeping the cards close to the chest.
I was literally just about to say keeping the cards close to their chest on this one. Hovering the Mumu, expecting that to be a placeholder there from Top Good Roll. We'll keep you up to date once we do find out from production on that one. What do you respond with the set, though? Do you respond with the Ornn, something that plays quite well into the set, or do you go maybe for a carry top lane? Of course, it does have that flexibility, as you alluded to.
Personally, if I was nerdRage, I'd be looking to try and get a good bot lane right now, because you don't know where the set is going to end up. I'm assuming the Teemo is another proxy. That's making our job slightly trickier.
Come on, guys, buy the champions.
It might, yeah, it might help if we had something to work with, but I was hoping they were going to pick something for a bot lane, maybe a Kalista to deny the Kalista set combination, even though that now has been shown that wasn't the case. Yeah, we're gonna leave that for now until we get a bit more information to actually let you guys know what is going on. But the set, the Lucian, if this is a Galio locked in, that would indicate that the set is going towards the top side of the map and away from support. Karma means it almost certainly is going to be. And we're getting a bit of information on the proxies. The Amumu is a Syndra, and the Teemo is an Ezreal. So 2 champions that we would definitely expect, 2 champions we were surprised to see slip through the pick and ban phase. Just something that, yeah, we now know that is what nerdRage is going for.
I'm still pretty surprised that they don't own Ezreal and Syndra. I mean, if it was something like Anivia that people rarely play, even in solo queue, I'd be kind of like, yeah, okay. Syndra, Ezreal, okay. But Zyra does get locked in, assuming that is for Buzzy in the bottom lane. Kind of not expecting Syndra to go anywhere else but mid lane at this point.
And honestly, the Zyra into Karma is something that I am very excited about. We don't see a lot of Zyra in competitive play. We definitely don't see Zyra paired with an Ezreal very much, and you typically think of Zyra as one of the most damagey supports. Like, she does a tremendous amount of poke damage. She's very obnoxious to lane against, especially for someone close range like the Lucian. And I think this is a really interesting pivot away from the expected that nerdRage have gone for, and could potentially catch Kaz and Penta off guard if they are looking to make some early skirmishes with the relatively short range bot lane.
I think it's going to be an interesting bot lane that we will have to keep our eyes on throughout the game, because Lucian obviously has his passive, so he can deal with the plants relatively easily. But then you have all the poke coming from Ezreal as well, but you match that with the Karma, so it's kind of, it feels dependent on the junglers at this point, and Zac is one of those heavy gank, good early but amazing late game junglers, because he's just insanely tanky. So Zac, are we expecting him just to spend most of his time around this bot lane, try and get the Ezreal ahead?
I mean, the amount of setup you get from the Zac, the Zyra, you're going to have plenty of damage. You are going to have all the time in the world to lock someone up and take them down if you do land either the Entangling Thorns or Zac's Elastic Slingshot, which, you know, fairly easy to land. He can engage from a hell of a distance away. So I do think that is definitely a good option. Syndra in the mid lane is always decent, but we have to see what Viperio are going to respond with. Now, they've saved it for the last pick because Sejuani is going to be the jungler, forcing setup into the top lane, we have to expect, unless we're playing something really wacky. They're going to respond with
Nautilus?
So that
Karma mid? Or is it Nautilus mid with Karma support?
So I want it to be Nautilus mid, and I think that would be a good way to put pressure on the Syndra, but I think the safer option is to potentially put Karma mid. But it's again, it's the Zyra that's throwing me off here, because if you put Nautilus in the bot side, in theory, yeah, he's gonna get poked down so heavily by the Zyra, and as soon as he comes in, yes, he might initially get that he might land the dredge line onto the Zyra and get hold of her, but she's just going to immediately root him on the spot and then get out of there with the Ezreal. So I am curious to see where these champs are going to end up. Obviously, we're going to do a remake of the lobby.
There we go. I was waiting for it.
Yeah, to get the champions in the correct place because of those proxies. So I'm interested to see where they're going to end up properly. And I think that Viperio could potentially have thrown a bit of a spanner into the works here with that final pick if they do choose to switch it around.
We'll just have to wait for it to redo the entire champion select and see where the champions are indeed going. So everyone will just pick their actual champions themselves. I'm really surprised by the pivot at the last second, but I am expecting it kind of to be Karma support.
It's definitely not what I was expecting to come out, because we have kind of seen a move away from the hyper engaged bot lanes. The Nautiluses, the Freshes, the Leonas, they're still good, they're still strong, but enchanters are coming back in a lot more. The likes of the Yumi, the Lulu, the I forgot another key one.
Well, I
There's
was going to
another one
mention
as
the
well.
Tam
Karma.
Kench just to kind of defend, but
Yeah,
yeah, Karma too. Yeah, she's
as well.
definitely an enchanter.
Yeah, and the reason it just completely slipped my mind, even though it was in the draft
The
already.
enchanted mode, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. And the reason these are coming back in is because AD carries have had these, wide sweeping buffs. They have become a lot more prevalent, a lot more important in team compositions. So seeing the Nautilus picked up on that last minute when they already had the Karma does kind of deviate away from what we would have expected. But one lane that we haven't talked about a lot at all is the set versus the Aatrox. It was the final pick for nerdRage, trying to get that matchup for top good role. They saved it to last despite, they had to save it to last because they didn't know where the set was going. Sejuani was obviously picked up in the last rotation for Viperio, maintaining that flexibility. And with that lock in bell, we can see that it's going to be actually a Karma in the mid lane. So despite what we've just been talking about, not what either of us were still expecting.
I mean, it makes sense, but then that just... To me, it feels like if putting the Nautilus in the bottom lane, you're just kind of sacking your laning phase and kind of going... Either Johnny Rico just completely beelines toward the spot lane, level 6 or even pre-level 6 to try and get Lucian ahead, or you're going to be super aggressive in the early game and try and make sure that you can pick off Buzzy or pick off Kazed before they can actually get any damage down. It sounds like a very big ask.
100% agree with you. Yeah, to be honest, not a huge lot more to say on that, because I personally agree as well that the Nautilus and the Karma would be better suited switched around. I think between the Nautilus and the Sejuani, you would have had a huge amount of kill pressure on the Syndra with all the CC, and of course the double stacking of Sejuani's Frost passive with the 2 melee champions would have been fantastic in locking down Nice Guy Dom and getting some early advantages. But Lucian Nautilus is by no means a bad lane. It is definitely not something that we are unaccustomed to seeing, and it still has a massive amount of kill pressure. If you do manage to get an early hook, level 1, level 2, onto this Zyra, Lucian can do a huge amount of damage and might be able to burst her down, generating an early lead. The thing that concerns me the most is if that doesn't happen, if they aren't able to generate a lead, and you start to get to level 6 and beyond, and this Lucian Nautilus hasn't found any real impact.
Yeah, you're just going to be whittled down by all the poke from the Ezreal Zyra. We've seen it time and time again in solo queue when Zyra gets picked up. It's usually a Zyra 1 trick that has about 1.5 million mastery points on that Zyra, and then even pre-level 6 just does a kind of ridiculous amount of damage, and then from level 6 has extra CC with the ultimate. And yeah, you can spider not to safety using the Nautilus, but if Lucian has no dash because he's used it and has a 20-second cooldown on base, or if he's used his flash, there's just double CC from the Zyra. If Zack's there as well, he can't get away.
Well, we've talked about this bot lane, I think probably as much as what the audience can stand.
Almost.
Yeah, until we actually see them throwing skill shots at each other, I think we best move away. And look, we've got the ultimate anime fight up in the top lane. We've got Set versus Aatrox. You've got the aloof brawler, the big butch handsome guy who just wants to run at you, asserting his dominance against the dark, the edgy, the dark in blade, who's going to be backflipping all over the lane. This is another lane that could be really pivotal, because each of these teams is going to want to be throwing their might around in the side lanes, and this is where they're going to be able to do it. Will Aatrox be able to actually find any advantages over the set, or will we see Zuki have a bit of a redemption, come back and knuckle down into this Aatrox, getting himself an advantage and pushing side lane pressure, which is something I feel that Viperio are really going to need.
They really, really will need it, but we've seen Aatrox win out over the set time and time again. They seem to just have that little bit of je ne sais quoi that allows them to get just the advantage early, and then set is just kind of like, I'm trying to punch him, man, but just can't quite get enough damage down. He just heals up a bit too much.
Yeah, the extra bit of sustain from the Aatrox inbuilt into his kit can be pivotal in this matchup. If Tyrin goes up there on the Zac as well, you've got enough CC to keep Zuki in place for as long as possible. If you can avoid that Haymaker, it could be a good place to focus, but then you haven't got the Zac focusing around mid lane, you haven't got him in bot lane, so it's really going to be a lot of pressure on Tyrin, I feel, to kind of be everywhere on the map. There's a lot of things that we're looking at these lanes, and it's kind of like this could go really, really well for either of the teams, or it could go really badly as well. And I think Tyrin, Zac, is going to be a big part of how quickly nerdRage can assert the pressure around the map, whether they can get these fights with a numbers advantage, and whether they have the tools to keep the Viperio members in place for long enough for their carriers to dish out the damage needed.
So where do you expect for Tyrant to be putting his early priority? Because we've talked about the bot lane, how that's just kind of a poke fest on the side of nerdRage. Are we expecting for Tyrant to try and focus mid lane, try and get nice guy Dom ahead? Is it the top lane, try and get the snowball going with his Aatrox?
So if I'm Tyron, I see no reason to go mid at all, other than to shadow nice guy Dom and make sure that he stays safe. In theory, Karma shouldn't be able to kill Syndra if, both players are playing at an even level. They should be fairly well matched. And the Syndra has fantastic wave clear, fantastic utility. Mid lane, not really a concern, not really an issue. Top lane, I think, could be a problem because, like we've already said, the Set and the Aatrox can both go toe-to-toe in the melee prowess, trying to take blows off of each other. Johnny Rico goes up there as well with Sejuani. You have a huge amount of CC. You have extra damage involved as well. That could be the swing to give Set the advantage. And if you get Set an early kill, he'll then turn that into tower plates. He'll then turn that into a second kill. He'll then turn that into river control, into lane pressure, and a big problem in the side of nerdRage that they are struggling to deal with anymore. So I think that the top lane is the early point of aggression, but once you hit level 6, you want to be trying to get bot, you want to be trying to force this low-range bot lane into as many unfavorable positions as possible.
It's even more pivotal, this top lane, due to the fact that there's 2 Rift Heralds now, so you can repeatedly just get the Rift Herald, use it, then come back a few minutes later, get another Rift Herald, and it can allow you to get so many tower plates and so much damage onto these open first-tier towers, and that will open up the map even more.
It definitely will, and having an open map is going to be, it's always beneficial to you. It's always going to help you out, but when you do have junglers that have high mobility, like the Zac, like the Sejuani, gaining access to be able to go deeper into enemy's jungle and limit those areas of safety by getting early towers down is going to be even more beneficial to try and pressure and force early kills. So yeah, I'm hoping we see some action in the top lane, and then it transitions over into bot in that, kind of standard way around the 8-minute mark where we see the lane swaps come in and teams start to compete for the Herald.
Well, we are onto the Rift for our third game of the day, nerdRage versus Viperio. Hopefully it'll be a close game. Hopefully it'll be action-packed. It'll be fun to watch, but we won't know until we get started. But level 1 being started off by Viperio already. Can they catch out the Aatrox? No, looks like he's just going to walk it out, but they are going to continue for this invade.
Spider senses have tingled, and he's seen them coming now, so the 5-man stack, unlikely they're going to be able to find anything, but they will be able to take control of this top side of the jungle. They'll be able to place as much vision down as they want, and you can see the rest of nerdRage, they're not really doing anything about it right now. They're starting to path towards the Viperio's red buff, but instead they're going to back away. It looks almost like nerdRage are just going to take the pass, get one ward down in the pit, and then entirely back away.
That looks to be the case. Looks like they're actually going to rotate over for this red buff now, thinking that maybe Tyron went for the invade, but so far just playing it cautiously. Don't want to just enter and find a 5-man stack.
It's not, you don't really want to be walking into the entire enemy team at level 1. It's not the best way to start your games off, from what I'm told. I mean, I could be wrong, but losing potentially 2 kills would be good. It's not going to be good.
No, really won't. But gonna start on their bot side or eastern and southern side quadrants respectively for these two junglers. We'll spot out the Sejuani getting off on that bottom side, so we know exactly where she is, so we can track her for the remainder of the game if they so wish. Quick roll back, good roll up, or top good roll, I should say. This Kaz, see, this is the poke we were talking about.
This is the problem. You've got Lucian, who is close range. You've got Nautilus, who wants to be going forward, wants to be going in, and already at level 1, both these are...
Ooh, nice flash. That has to get the hell out of there. The double flash burn for the two summoners from Penta.
Alright, that's a good trade for the Summoners. Definitely an aggressive move by Penta there will pay off. Top lane, they're just trading blows, you know, nothing that we don't expect from these guys already. But again, it's can you capitalize on that? You've now gained control of the wave. It's pushing towards your opponents, you know, past the river mark. So the Sejuani can't really gank to help you out now. And although you've blown the flashes, is it enough? Top good roll. Zuki, the trading blows.
Johnny Rico is towards that top side as well. Flash available for good for top good roll. Spider sense is tingling. Might have been spotted out by a ward there. Seems to know he was there. Oh, he's gonna face check it. Let's try and get himself away. Flash is good flash. We'll manage to get out.
I don't think top good roll even needed flash there. I think he was already out of range of the face breaker, but Viperio so far, they do seem to be winning in these side lanes in terms of pressure. They do seem to have control of the map, and while top good roll will get the push into the top side, he's going to have to back away because Zuki was winning out in that trade, and with the flash on Aatrox already blown, he can't hang around and risk the Sejuani coming back up for an easy return gank.
Definitely not. When you have the Arctic Assault, then into the Face Breaker, that's a lot of CC to be put down onto you when you have no flash available. Only the Umbral Dash. But did spot him out on a ward, so knows he is towards that top side, that western side quadrant, getting Darkened Blade down on Zuki. Pulled back by the Infernal Chains. And Zach's going towards his bottom lane now, when 55 seconds until the first Drake, it will be the Mountain Drake. And with them pushed up, with the wave kind of positioned past the central part of that bottom lane, it could spell a gank for Tyrant.
It could be very, very nice. His Nautilus is only level 2. Penta has been, you know, forced away from the wave ever so slightly by the poke of Buzzy. It's just perpetual damage over and over by the Zyra, and this is the problem that we were saying. Yes, it was a good engage at level 1 from Penta, flashing forwards to get the hook. Got both of the flashes out of nerdRage's bot lane, but you're looking at 5 minutes into the game, flashes have half of the cooldown refunded. Everyone's full health down here again. There's nothing's been made of it so far.
Not one bit of extra damage done. There was a little bit of a buff onto Lucian on this patch. It was just a little bit of a range buff on his Q, but I think that's more of quality of life than anything else, and doesn't really affect his laning that much, as they put a little bit of vision down into the river. Sejuani towards his bottom side now as well, can go for something, but Penta looking for a hook, but can't quite find it.
Not going to be able to get a lot done here, and with Johnny Rico hanging around on the bottom side, you'd hope he was looking for a gank, but it's actually going to be Tyrant in mid.
Yeah, Yikes is just going to be whipped back with the stretching strike. He should be going down here. Manages to flash away. I spoke a little too soon there. Let's get the flash out with no summoner spells expended.
Very good discipline to save that flash until the last minutes when Tyrant couldn't be able to pull him back any further and to dodge the scatter of a week from Nice Guy Dom. Syndra was very low on mana at the start of that play, so couldn't make the most of her abilities. Didn't have the level 6 as well when that player started off. She got it on the wave ticking over, so wasn't able to burst down Sykes' Yikes. He will lose his flash, but ultimately the game stays deathless.
And very even on CS, very even on gold across the map. Only about 100, maybe 150 gold between these two teams. Looks like Sejuani has started off onto the Drake. Tyron make his way towards his bottom side as well. Will be spotted out by Control Ward about now. Sejuani knows that he's there, so we'll back away from the Drake pit. Things coming in as he goes in with the Arctic Assault. Tyron still has his passive to go into the bottom lane as well. Buzzy in a lot of trouble. He doesn't have his flash back up as he's ticking down. Will manage to get himself away. Then back up. Nice Guy Dom. He just pieces out of there with the flash after teleporting all the way in. guy of the week just to get this done, but no one dies yet again.
And that feels super bad for Viperio there. It was another good play. The flashes were still off cooldown. They were really running out of time to make something of that early engagement they got, but they couldn't quite get it. Buzzy walks away on what must have been like double-digit HP at the very most. No kills go down there, but a lot of resources were expended. You pulled the TP from the Syndra, you got the flash as well, so although they don't get a kill, they are burning a lot of these summoners and they're opening up a lot of avenues for Johnny Rico to potentially exploit. Once he has backed off, come back onto the Rift healthy with a few more items with his level 6 potentially. Nice guy Dom has to play super carefully now in this mid lane.
Johnny Rico will need to take one more camp to reach that level 6 point, not quite at it. Tyrant did crest over the level 6 mark, so his gangs will be even more potent with the Let's Bounce. Pings down to the bottom lane. Looks like he wants to go for some sort of move. Look towards his bottom side. KZ actually lands the hook onto Buzzy. He should be dead, but his flash just came back off cooldown. Passive down onto KZ now. Zach waiting in the wings. Will manage to stop his back.
And Viperio are really feeling frustrated down at his bot side. They have had 3 fantastic engages, 3 fantastic plays by Penta, landing the hooks, getting them into a position to fight, and they just haven't been able to secure the kill any time. They got the flashes the first time, they got all of the summoners that were remaining the second time, and then they get Buzzy's flash again just after it comes back off cooldown. They do manage to use the priority that they earned to get themselves a first Drake. That mountain the mountain will be helpful for this set, the Sejuani and the Nautilus, just give them a bit more frontline potential with those extra resistances. But again, we're nearly 10 minutes into the game, it still remains even at 0-0.
Yeah, it will really help out the set, especially in this lane. Will help him with the extra resistances as he, I think, is building towards that Blade of the Rune King. It's a pretty normal build for a set at this point. But besides that, it's only about 100 gold between these two teams as we get towards that 10-minute mark. Starting to get a little bit of these itemizations on board. You have that Bami Cinder for the Zac. Have Bami Cinder on the side of Johnny Rico too. BF Sword and the Sheen with the Tier for the AD carries respectively.
And if we actually look at where we think the next fight is going to be, the Rift Herald has now spawned. We've seen Viperio have already made the swap up. Lucian and Nautilus are up on this top side. I'm wondering if we're seeing a pause here. We did drop in briefly and we had a message in production, but it looks like we are going to be continuing to mine a little bug splat. Thank you, League of Legends client. You are a beautiful piece of spaghetti coding. And like we said, Viperio have moved up onto this top side. They are onto the Herald, but there's a lot of members from nerdRage up here. I think they know that this is going on, but it doesn't look like they're moving into position to contest just yet. They might be able to take it away without nerdRage even going for the fight.
Zac doesn't have his smite, so will not even try to contest that. His smite came off of cooldown just as Rift Herald was being taken. So good use of the cooldowns there from Johnny Rico, or good knowledge of Tyrant's cooldowns potentially there. It could just be barefaced luck, but Sejuani towards the top side now, knows that Buzzy doesn't have his flash, doesn't have his ignite. It looks like he's gonna try and face check this.
So he's called out.
Yep, top good roll is there. Will use the ultimate to try and get himself away. Pops the World Ender just for the additional movement speed. Azuki flashes to get away. Good use of the flash, otherwise he was caught out.
Once again, we see the teams clash, but nobody comes out worse for wear. Azuki had to use his flash to escape, but he'll manage to walk it off. And again, this game is just so evenly tied up right now. And we were saying before, here, you know, when we're doing our own little intro, what to expect. Viperio got absolutely demolished last week. I don't think that's unfair to say. Resolve absolutely ran them over. nerdRage took a massive chunk out of Lucendi as well. So we were definitely you could be forgiven for expecting this game to be very one-sided,
Yeah.
and so far, we're having absolutely none of it. Both of the teams are going toe-to-toe in every single aspect. There's barely a wave of CS between any of our players at all. It's only on, the top side of the map. The Aatrox is coming out slightly ahead, but everywhere else, it's just so balanced.
And even with that Rift Herald, even with taking the Drake, there's actually no gold between these two teams, maybe about 200 every now and then. So it is almost mind-bogglingly even in the gold. The game state in general, as we're at the 12-minute mark, one dragon, no towers, some tower plates taken here and there. But it's just a low game state at this point, really.
And this is the thing, if you're looking at where you think the next big fight is going to be, of course, you've got Penta threatening for a hook on the top side. You've got Zuki looking like he's fancying it.
Oh, top good roll has to flash there. If he was hit by the W, he was dead to rights. And it just shows how even this game is. The Aatrox and the Set, every time we see them, one of them is being worse for wear. The other is kind of like, yeah, I could take this fight. So it's almost coin flip at this point. Is they're looking for a hook, got the ultimate, but got nothing for it.
I think Penta was being a bit ambitious there, throwing out the ult and then not connecting with a hook. That's always a bit of a feels bad man. But it will be another tool used. It'll allow the reset from both of our bot lanes. And like we said, if we're looking at where the next fight is going to be, we were potentially looking topside for the final few tower plates on nerdRage's outer tower. But now it is the Drake. 20 seconds until this Infernal Drake spawns. You can see all of the teams have taken their backs, taken their resets, and they're starting to look around here. The River Scuttle will go over to Viperio, so that little bit of extra information. Top Good Roll is on the other side of the map, but he does have his TP available right now. Zuki has just reset. We could be looking at a full 5v5 breaking out in a minute. Penta's just trying to get any bit of information he can. They now know Tyron's here. You have to feel that the tension is starting to boil over. There's going to be an engage at some point soon on this bot side of the map, but there has to be around this dragon.
I mean, you feel it has to be, but I would like to point out the double VF sword for the Lucian. A little bit of interesting itemization choice there, but it doesn't mean he has a heck of a lot of damage.
I mean, he's an AD carry, that's all he needs, right?
All he needs is just 6 BF swords, he just wins the game.
Yeah, you just buy bigger swords, because of course AD carries don't buy guns. What a preposterous idea. They buy swords to throw at people. And yeah, Kaz has the double BF sword, perhaps not the most ideal of itemization choices for a Lucian, but when you compare that to the Lucian, who's sat on the Sheen and the Tia, he's going to be far out damaging in these fights, and especially if you take short trades, short skirmishes, which the Nautilus and the Lucian are oh so good at, you are going to be coming out vastly ahead, and there's no real way for nerdRage to recover that health without going back to base.
That Maritime powered huge chunked him out so much as Tyron goes for the engage, will miss the stretching strike, but in comes with the teleports now. Penta quite low here, Bobule's not quite popped just yet. The first blood does come through onto the Zyra, looking for a second one, but they'll trade one back. The Darken Blade just gonna be popped down. Double kill now for Zed, looking for Penta as Top Good Roll, looking to try and chase them down. Tyron jumps back in, still has the passive. Zuki gets hit in the face with the Darken Blade, looking for the second, manages to find it. Zuki surviving for so long, but can't quite find the kill onto Ezreal.
The fight gets split, and we see nerdRage take advantage. Top Good Roll's looking for more.
Can he find it? Goes golden? Oh, does manage it.
Mistimes the second Q, but the auto was enough anyway. So I don't even need my abilities, I'm gonna just hit you. Top Good Roll picks himself up another kill, and honestly, it was a fantastic flank by him in that fight. We saw Viperio split up so much, chasing members up through this top side of the jungle towards the blue buff. They tried to fight in the river, and Top Good Roll just came into the center. He focused down on the members of Viperio that needed killing. He took them out of the fight, and the rest of the team was able to collapse in. They will take 4 kills in that trade. They will take the Infernal Drake, and they will take the first real gold lead we have had of the game, sitting at 1,000 in the clear.
And that's exactly what you want. You have extra gold onto your Syndra, extra gold onto your Ezreal, and extra gold onto your Aatrox, and you have assists for your support and jungler. If you could plan out team fight and the gold distribution, you did it perfectly. You got exactly what you wanted from the team fight. You gave up only 1 kill, and it was your support. It only gives you a 1,000, almost 1,500 gold lead, but still, it's a start, and you're onto Kaz. Johnny Rico coming in from the side as well, so Let's Bounce is challenged, and Lucian is out of there, followed by the Nautilus, looking for even more here, and they have damage aplenty. Facebreak comes through, Azuki uses the W, will manage to find 1 kill, looking for the second, not quite find it. He will eventually go down. Johnny Rico hit with the True Shot Barrage, and he will be dead to rise himself, but the heal just about saves him with the spell. But yikes, Sykes is yikes, will eventually, oh, he does go down with 1 more Q, followed by a tower shot, have the reply.
Messy fight up on the top side there, multiple members going down from each team, but it will be nerdRage coming out ahead. They get a few more kills, they get all of the pressure, and they are able to move on to this Herald Tyrant. No opposition team picking that up now, even though Viperio know full well that he's doing it. And like you were saying just a minute ago, Darksil, all the gold there went onto the members it needed to go onto. Ezreal picked up another kill. I believe Nice Guy Dom picked up another kill as well. So, you know, the gold is starting to get onto the right members. And although it was scrappy, although it was far from perfect, it's the kind of thing you can get away with. Maybe Top Good Roll not blowing his flash in the river for no reason.
I just heard it and I saw the question mark thing.
That is questionable. Hey, maybe he thinks he doesn't need it. So far, he hasn't died. He's doing all right for himself. You know, playing the game on hard mode. We had one team decide they need to lose a member to make it a fair fight earlier on. Maybe Top Good Roll decides he doesn't need his flash as well. Who knows?
But Viperio are already doing better than they did last week. They have 3 kills. They have 3 kills and a dragon. They had 2 kills by the end of the game last week. And it's not over yet. You still have a Lucian that can pump out a lot of damage. You have a Karma going full AP, it looks, and you have a set. So it's not, you're not down and out, you're not dead in the water, but it is starting to feel a little bit more nerdRage in the driver's seat. They're just kind of like dictating the pace of the game and actually starting to win, since they are eking out a slight gold lead, only about 2,500 gold.
I think the problem is, at this stage of the game, you start looking at what's going to be happening next, and you have an Ocean Soul coming up eventually, with the next Drake spawning in just over a minute and a half's time. You have the Baron going to be coming up soon, and you start to look at the comp positions and what they actually want to do. And Viperio is very much about going forwards. It's very short range, it's very much about running you down after an initial pick. When you look at nerdRage's comp in response to that, they have excellent peel, they have excellent kite, and I think that with the gold lead they're getting already for themselves, they have the tools to be able to drag these fights out, be able to force Zuki to come to them over and over, be able to force Penta out of position, and just chip away at their health before Viperio can get that big killer engage that they're necessarily looking for.
And they just wasted so much time in this bottom side trying to find a pick, and Zach is now there, making it a 3 versus 3 if they go for the engage. Zuki down to half health. Does spot them out. Terran, I think, looking for something here, goes on to Johnny Rico with the last slingshot, channeling the teleport now as the stretch strike pulls him back. Zuki is just gonna be sniped. Nice Guy Dom is the kill credit recipient there. Channeling Ripper bottom lane, not quite needed for this first tier 1. Tier 2 can be taken down as well. Shelly cannot get a buff down there, thus still has plenty of health remaining.
And you can see now that it is nerdRage on the offensive. They've got 4 members with the aggressive TP. Nice Guy Dom is able to force people away, and there's such a range advantage in the nerdRage composition that they are fantastic in these sieges. They are fantastic at pushing back the members of Viperio, because if they don't have those big engage tools, you know, the Sejuani Glacial Bowler, the Nautilus there to engage, set to run and really pressure into the backline, they can feel fairly free to step up and actually just hammer you down with all of this poke, starting to get these advantages. You can see in all of the fights across the past 6 to 7 minutes or so, they've been going further and further in nerdRage's favour. Yes, they started off a bit messy, and they are by no means going cleanly for them. You know, this game is far from over, but it's looking dangerous for Viperio.
Yeah, nice good Dom picked off here in his own jungle. Will manage to get misses the Scare of the Week actually. But going back to these AD carries, because they're so pivotal in these respective team comps, the double BF sword hasn't really worked out well for Kaz. It just feels like as if it was such a suboptimal build path that you just denied yourself that early power spike of either the Blade of the Rune King or the Essence Reaver, and you're waiting for it to get enough completion gold to actually get your Essence Reaver now, and he just about got it with the longsword included. But you're still feeling like if you're doing next to no damage against KZ, and he has his Iceborne Gauntlet now, so you'll be able to do even less damage.
Not only the Iceborne Gauntlet, but also the upgraded Mirror Mana. He's managed to actually tick that over, get it finally upgraded. And you can see with the Aegis of the Legion in his back pocket, likely going for that Death Stance as well. And you have to think that although we were toting Kaz as having the early advantage, being able to put some pressure down in the early stages by just sheer out damaging the Ezreal, that time has starting to pass. And if you put these guys in a vacuum, that one-on-one situation, I think the fight is still even at this stage, but in 5 minutes time, it goes the Ezreal's way. In 10 minutes time, it definitely swings Ezreal's favour. And if you have any of these other members involved as well, I think you're really starting to see the individual members on the side of nerdRage are just starting to outshine their opposition in every position so far.
Once you have that Death Dance complete on the Ezreal, you're just gonna be so tanky, but do so much damage as well. You have lifesteal from your Mystic shots and your auto attacks, so it's gonna be
horrible.
And that was with, I think, 3 spheres down.
Hey, a Syndra will do that to you. They're going fishing with a True Stock Barrage. They will miss, unfortunately, for KZ. But again, that is a push that Viperio were trying to get into play. Just completely denied immediately. All it took was Nice Guy Dom, a Q, and an ult, and Kaz has to back out of the fight. And although you can look at that in isolation and say, okay, that's a side lane, he was overextending, he was pushing a bit too greedily, that's fine. Move that into a position where you're fighting around the Baron, or around the Drake, or you're trying to siege a tower, and suddenly Kaz can't get anywhere near these fights, so a big part of Viperio's damage is completely nullified just by Nice Guy Dom existing on this Rift.
And then with KZ, with that Iceborne Gauntlet too, you have that zoning, the zone of control, one might say, thanks to the passive on that. And it will make Zuki even have such a hard time to try and lock KZ down. And when you have your Arcane Shift and your Flash available, you have Buzzy for the disengage or engage, depending on what you want. It's going to be so hard for Viperio to actually kind of claw back into this game. They're 4,500, 5,000 gold behind, and it just feels like as if from this point, just everything is going to be just a little bit out of their grasp.
They need to make something happen in the next 3 or 4 minutes to give them a bit of a leg back into this game, else I am going to start to get seriously concerned for this Viperio comp. Like you said, Darksil, it feels across the past 6 to 7 minutes that the pace of the game and the tempo have started to be controlled by nerdRage. They're the ones that are dictating the ebb and flow and where things are happening. And I feel that that is just going to spiral further and further out of control unless Viperio can have a decisive fight and gain some ground on the map for themselves. They've only got 1 tower open on the map. They've lost both of their bottom towers, and they're starting to fall behind in this race for the dragon as well. We've got 30 seconds until this second Ocean Drake's going to spawn. You have to think this is where the next fight is going to be, and Viperio is going to have to step up here.
Can't step up if it's brought to you. Stretch and Strike pulls him back, and he is just chain CC. Will manage to get away with the flash, but that is a flash he cannot use in any impending team fight. Kaz a little bit of trouble. Will manage to get away with the dash, and root down Tyrant, but he is deceptively tanky even at this 26-minute mark with just 1.5 items. Drake is about to spawn.
And with the Warmogs, he will be able to actually... No, he's not quite at that 3,000 health threshold. So, although he has the Warmogs completed, the Zac will not be able to just, you know, instantly heal up and be healthy. And good job for Viperio. They managed to actually get into the river and take it away from nerdRage. Not right from under their noses. They had vision down. They had River Totem there, so they knew that they were doing it. They just didn't fancy the fight. They felt that it was something that they could seed. It gives them priority over mid lane. We're going to take this tower. I want to see if Viperio are going to come in from the flank, or if we're going to see nerdRage just take this and walk away.
Looks like they're just going to take it, walk away, clear out some vision in this western side quadrant, but they got two towers off of giving up that one Drake. I think that's worth. You give up one Ocean Drake, which you already have yourselves, so you can match that, and you get 2 towers. You get was it a tier 1 in the top side? You get a tier 1 in the top side, you get tier 2 in the mid. I'd definitely call that worth every day of the week.
It 100% is, because when you've got this Zac, you want to be going fishing for these engages. You can see Johnny Rico tried to aggressively push onto the Aatrox there. He wasn't able to do it. Nice Guy Dom did use the TP into mid lane to dissuade any further aggression. And look on the minimap, all 5 members of nerdRage are starting to converge around this Baron. The Scryer's Bloom is going to be used. The Sweepers are going to start coming in. There's no hesitation to try and set up further vision. They saw that Set was on the bottom side. He does have the TP, but they're confident that they can take it now.
Yeah, they baited it in. They baited in the Karma TP as well from the Summoner's Spellbook. They back away. They've gotten the advantage that they were looking for. Use up both available teleports. And they already had their 2 used up as well. Pull back around onto this objective. Try and get a little bit poked down with Cinder Spheres, but not managed to find it. Johnny Rico is caught out. Will be pulled back. The Infernal Chains, Stretching Strike, land onto 2. The last pass stops 2 as well. Look at all the damage. Nice guys, Dominus. First kill, second kill going over to the Zac, looking for even more now as Penta is being chased down by the Aatrox. Pearl Chains will not manage to fight it all away. He gets pulled back. And that's 3 kills over to the side of nerdRage, and this, my friends, is a free Baron.
First, they baited it. They dared Viperio to come in and contest them at it. They backed away, having pulled out the TPs. They went for the killing blow to neutralize any sort of chance for it to be stolen, and now they are going to take this objective in hand. There is nothing on the map that Viperio can respond with while this is happening. They're going to lose 3 members, they're going to lose the Baron, and this gold lead is only getting larger into nerdRage's favor. The game has not been as fast-paced as perhaps we were expecting it to be. We're expecting there to be more bloodshed. We're expecting it to be more commanding in nerdRage's favor. But with the slow, methodical play, they are coming out ahead time after time in these fights. And it has to only be a matter of time before they are sieging at the base of Viperio.
And you're even stronger with that Baka as well. Double death stands picked up to the side of nerdRage, top laner and AD carry, so they're even more tanky, a lot more lifesteal, and just a lot more damage just in general. So what do you do? What do you do if you are Viperio? You are 8,000 gold behind, deathless on 3 members of the enemy team. Is there any way back into this game? You have to take a miracle fight.
Let's be honest, Darkseid, it's looking rough. I by no means think that the game is a done deal. I do not think that Viperio are definitely out of this. But I think that it's getting... I mean, what wave clear do you have? You've got the Karma poke. Lucian can't step up to take the wave. Zyra and Ezreal can chip at you down whenever you step it up. This is the thing that I was saying earlier on. The range discrepancy between these 2 compositions heavily favors nerdRage, especially in these siege situations. Well, Tyrant's going in aggressively.
He uses the showstopper onto Tyrant, but it's only onto 1 member. He still has his passive available. He will be put into blockbills, but they take the team fight anyway. Nice Guy Dom picks off the tankiest member of Viperio. That's a second. Looking for the third. Goes golden just to buy a little bit of time, but he doesn't buy enough. Not nearly enough for this game as a double kill comes through from the Ezreal. He is deathless, my friends, at 5, 0, and 8. You don't even need to finish your Raptons to Scar the Weak onto 2, and he is out of there. The unofficial triple. Looking for the quad for kill. Will not manage to find it. Bloodthirsty support takes it away, and that is game. nerdRage goes 2-0.
We said that Viperio needed the miracle fight. We said they probably needed two. That was not the one to take as they go into the jungle. Tyron throwing himself in harm's way. Perhaps recklessly, we might have thought, but the rest of the team comes through. And in what was initially a 4 versus 5, we do see nerdRage step up. They have the damage, they have the tools, and Viperio were taken apart. They simply didn't manage to make anything of the early leads they needed to find. And ultimately, nerdRage just closed out the game in a calm, controlled style.
And I think it's fair to say that it's not on one member of Viperio. We can't just pinpoint and say, right, it was this player that caused the game just kind of go in favor of nerdRage. It was this player that misplayed. It was this player's fault that they lost. It was just, I think every player on nerdRage was just better than every player on Viperio. It sounds a little flamey, but I just feel like as if they just played the game better, they played their roles better than the respective matchup.
I don't think that would be an unfair thing to say, but I do want to point out that despite our own expectations at the start of this when we saw the drafts, I think that Viperio were incredibly unlucky
Much better than last
on
week.
the bot side of the map. They had 3 stellar engages within the first 10 minutes, and unfortunately none of them actually resulted in any kills. You were talking double digits, but Buzzy walked away from those fights on more than one occasion. And perhaps if those fights had gone just ever so slightly better in Viperio's favour, if they'd picked up 1 or 2 kills onto Kaz in that first 10 minutes, this game would have been different again, and we'd be talking about how Viperio took a scrappy game and took it to a win. Unfortunately for them, that wasn't the case, and we will see nerdRage go 2-0 in the second week. We have to talk about MVPs now.
Yeah, we do. Who are you thinking for it?
Tyron.
Yeah.
100%.
Yeah, 100% Tyron. Yeah.
I don't think that the game was jungle diff, because, like we said, every member of nerdRage played their part and played it very well. But so many times we saw Tyron pushing forward. He was fishing for these fights over and over and over, and he was the setup that let the rest of nerdRage follow up and do their jobs perfectly. In that last fight alone, dove into the middle of 4 enemies by himself, set up his team for that game-winning fight, and he was just everywhere he needed to be, and he was the man to watch. He was the one that was getting things started for nerdRage to ultimately take the win.
Confident, but not overly confident, I think it's
yes.
for Tyron there. But we're going to go to a quick break before we bring you the final game of the day. It is Lucendi versus Mythos. Lucendi looking for a bit of redemption here. We'll see you in just a few short minutes.